Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Feed podcast. And this is our episode number 32. And it's been a very good week in all fronts. So, let me welcome my co host, Yash. How was your week and how are you?
I'm doing great. I hope you and all of you are also doing great. It's been a very, I would say, mixed week, but the weekend is here, so I'm excited.
Yeah, so today we are recording a bit later than usual in the night this time, but hopefully we've got enough time to cover everything. So this week we had a very crucial phase in the T20 World Cup, and as of recording we are one game away from deciding the winner. Both the semi-finals and some of the Super 8 games took place, and we have got our finalists, which are India and New Zealand. I'm sure one of those two teams, no one had expected them to be here, and that is, of course, New Zealand. But before we get to that, did you get hold of the semi-finals, and did you get a chance to catch up?
Um, I did watch today's match, which was the second semi-final. Not the entire match, but I watched maybe the last 6 overs of England's batting. But I did watch the highlights of both the semi-finals, so I think I am quite, let's say, up to date with whatever happened in the match. Obviously, not all the minor details, but thank God we have you for that.
Yeah, I really have to thank God because I've got everything covered here. And let us start with the first semi final, which was played between South Africa and New Zealand in Kolkata. I did make a separate video covering that game as well, but I'm sure uh, there's not enough reach for those type of videos. Our last podcast on that note got 98 views, so I would like to really thank our viewers because it is a big thing for us, even though 98 may seem small, but that was our most successful podcast ever. So
Yeah,
coming
that's
back,
from our perspective, it's as good as 1 million. Hopefully, it will change very soon.
yeah, very soon. So coming back to the first semi-final, and how much ever we would like to assume that South Africa didn't choke, to be very honest, they did, and there were signs all over the way they played. And I think more than choking, they felt like they were scared of choking, and they played in a different way because of that. And I think they've kind of stuck in the same problem India was stuck until a few years back, where whenever they played a big game, they would always feel the pressure and kind of be scared to express themselves freely because of being scared of making a mistake. But in that way, they were limiting themselves, and that is what this South African team is doing. I just didn't feel like they were the same team that made it till the semis unbeaten, and you had everyone kind of thinking twice before playing their shots and always being stuck in two minds, and it just felt like they weren't quite same with in terms of their thought process, and there's something in their mind.
Yeah, I completely agree with the analogy to the Indian teams of the past because even with this South African team, I think there was a lot of conversation about the way they're going to approach the game. And their coach was quite vocal and said that we are the favorites, we are no more the underdogs. And I think they tried to assert their dominance, and I think they overdid it. Because if you look at all the wickets that they lost, all of them maybe except one or two batters, were off really poor shots. So I think they just tried to be over aggressive. They tried to take control of the game, and in that they ended up losing it. And once you're 77 for 5, then no matter how much you do, it's always going to be short, and that's what happened in the match.
Yeah, I think talking about their coach, I do have a few strong opinions about him. Uh, Over the days, he's only made his case worse for fans to kind of follow his team.
Yeah,
I know he has gone through a lot, and all of that is fine, but you can't really push that onto others now that he's in a strong position in life. And it's not just one or two incidents in isolation. I've been observing him for quite a while. I think Indians got to know him after his famous "We made them growl" or
yeah,
grovel comment back in October. But even before that and after that, he has been constantly getting involved in needless arguments off the pitch. And even in this match, before the game, in the press conference, he was asked how South Africa changed from the time they used to choke earlier to now making it through without much trouble. And he just said, I wasn't there uh, before, indirectly also indicating towards their previous coach, who was Rob Walter, who's now the head coach of New Zealand, which is quite ironic because he was the one who led them uh, in, I think, 4 white ball tournaments from the 2022 T20 World Cup to the Champions Trophy in 25. So it's quite. He was taking a bit of a jibe at him, and then the way they went down, it was quite, I would say, a good justification of not to talk too much before the work is done. But coming back to the game, I felt New Zealand were quite good with their planning, and I did talk about this earlier, but playing Cole McConkey just for the matchup and then actually using him to win that matchup was quite brilliant because they had two left-handers to target, Quinton de Kock and Ryan Rickelton, and they played the right arm offie instead of East Sodi, not just to extend their batting but to also get both of those lefties in trouble with that matchup. And he came in and he got both of them out of successive deliveries. And then, true to Santner's words or the captain's logic, he never bowled again in the rest of the game. So, do you think that is the kind of matchup? I know haven't come to the final yet, but his role will be important against India as well in the final.
yeah, definitely. I think the only advantage for India is that we have a right-left combination. I think in the first few games when we had Abhishek and Kishan opening, I think Makanchi would have been a bit more dangerous. But coming to this matchup in this particular match, it was very smart. It was quite obvious that they would deploy an off spinner against the two left-handers. But I think you have to give credit that they actually bowled him in against the two left-handers because in a similar scenario, India, I remember they played Washington Sundar against South Africa, but unfortunately, both the left-handers got dismissed before he was brought into the attack, and then he became quite a useless option. So with New Zealand, I think it worked out that they had 5 other decent bowling options that they didn't have to rely on McConkey again. But this is peak matchups where you play a player particularly for a couple of other players. He gets them out and he's done the job. So it couldn't have been better for New Zealand.
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned earlier, they were reduced to 77 for 5. And from there, Marco Jansen did do
Yeah,
his very best. And though he got little to no support from the other end, they did somehow get to around 170, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
So definitely that total wasn't going to be enough, but they at least had something on the board, and they would have hoped that the pressure of chasing in a semi final would get to New Zealand. And to be very honest, uh, I know they were outclassed by Finn Allen and Tim Seifert, but they had their chances, and Tim Seifert was dropped in the very second over by Quinton de Kock, and which was actually quite a regulation catch for Deval Brevis at fine leg, but de
yeah,
Kock thought that he had the gloves, so he should go for it, and he dropped that catch, and maybe things could have been completely different with 170 to chase, and if you're one down for 10, it makes a huge difference. And then there were a few edges that went over the fielders, some didn't carry, some fell in the no man's land for the first 5 or 6 overs, but once they settled in, they just completely knocked South Africa over. And Finn Allen, with the fastest T20 international 100 in the history of the game, to do that in a World Cup semi final is absolutely unbelievable. He scored 100 in just 33 balls,
yeah.
and at one after a certain stage, he was just in autopilot and just never looked back.
Yeah, I think it was one of those days where whatever New Zealand touched was turning into gold. As you mentioned, Finn Allen, for our viewers, let me tell you that he was yet another player who was earmarked by Ved a few years back, and didn't seem to be as good because he was blindly slogging and he couldn't really play any other way. But he's gone back and he's worked on his defensive game, and now you can see what he's doing. And I think he scored the fastest T20 World Cup 100, not in overall T20s, because I'm sure there were a few hundreds that were faster than that. But
Yeah, he
still,
scored the fastest T20 international 100.
I think it's a T20 World Cup International 100, if I'm not wrong. That's what I've heard. But anyways, if that's coming in a World Cup semi-final while chasing, that's one of the most important stages for any team. And for New Zealand, who have themselves choked in the past, it's really nice for them to absolutely dominate South Africa. And they are now, I don't think they are the favorites, but I think they'll still give a decent fight to India.
Yeah, just to clarify on the 100 part, the fastest T20 100 in T20s is, I'm pretty sure, Chris Gale in 27 balls. But T20 internationals was 35 balls, which was David Miller and Rohit Sharma both joint
Okay.
fastest, and Finn Allen broke that record, which is quite special. Uh,
Yeah.
and talking about the team that New Zealand will face in the finals, and a team that many chose to support, is India, and they took on England in the second semi-final at the Wankhede. As usual, electrifying atmosphere. You had all the big celebrities and politicians and all of those people attending, of course. And I think it was a game worthy of a semi-final, even though most people wouldn't like the high scoring nature, over around 500 runs scored. But my opinion on that is that if it's happening as rarely as it has in this tournament, then I'm all for it. If this was the IPL where every second game is like this, then it kind of becomes a bit boring. But I didn't mind this considering the pretext we had throughout the tournament.
Yeah, I do understand your point, but today it felt like it was a batter's game. So the team that scored more sixes basically won because India won by 7 runs. So we hit one extra six. And once a team batting first scores 250 runs, I don't think there's any chance for the other team to chase that down. Because chasing 254 runs is it's not a joke because you have to keep scoring those many runs in every single over. Even if you are for, let's say, after the power play, if you are 80 or 100 runs with zero wickets, you still have to score 150 runs in 14 overs, which is not easy anyways. And with the dew as well, and with the kind of pitch they made, they completely took out all the bowlers. And I think towards the end, bowlers like Bumrah and Hardik, they were giving away 6 runs, and that was the game deciding or game defining moment. And that doesn't really like I don't really appreciate this form of T20 cricket. I would rather have closer matches where you're defending 150, 160. Those are the matches that are more exciting to me, but that's because I think I'm a bit of an old school fan. But
Yeah,
it was
any
definitely a
day of
close
the
game.
week you would take a 160 kind of a game.
Yeah,
Uh, but just once in a while, I don't mind such a game. But of course, not in the IPL because I know we have kind of gone away from the topic a bit, but you like high scoring games only when they are as rare as they are in have been in this tournament,
yeah,
not when the 160 game becomes the rarity and 250 becomes the norm. Then it
yeah,
kind of becomes boring. So coming back to this game,
yeah,
you had Sanju Samson yet again uh, doing what he has hardly done in his career, which is first of all getting to play an important game and then to perform the way he did. Scored 89 of 42 after scoring an unbeaten 97 in the previous game. Both knockouts and both unbelievably good knocks, and I would say both of them being surprisingly well in control considering
yeah,
how Sanju Samson plays over the entire career, how he has played. He was in absolute command of the way he batted in both these innings. For me, the key matchup was going to be the Jofra Archer battle, and fair to say he dominated Jofra Archer for once after continuously being kind of rattled by him in the past. He finally got hold of him, and when it mattered the most, which is important, I think in the very first over he got a 4 and a 6 away, and then Archer did come back and Sanju Samson holed out to Harry Brook at mid-on, but Harry Brook dropped an absolute sitter when Sanju Samson was on 15, and then Sanju hit another 6 of Archer and kind of asserted his moral victory over Archer in that game. So things could have been very different even here had he fallen for just 15, and you never know how things would have gone.
yeah, definitely. I heard someone say that Sanju Samson, over the period of his career, has been fairly unlucky. He's always had a few freak dismissals. So all that bad luck basically converted into good luck for him over these last 2 games, which is a nice comeback for him because he was seriously being doubted by a lot of fans. And it's very nice to see him perform for once. And I hope all the questions are going to at least shut down for the next few matches until he again starts flopping and people start questioning him.
Yeah, until he eventually goes back to into that vicious cycle. But
Yeah,
I feel that fans in India tend to be a bit reactionary. Uh,
yeah,
Sometimes I also would like to include myself in that. So when someone else does well at the same time as someone not doing well, you kind of get into that bias of preferring one over the other. But if you look
yeah,
at the previous cycle, now that we have hindsight have, uh, since the previous World Cup, Sanju Samson has played a few incredible knocks, though because the volume of the cricket that has been played and kind of the nature of Samson's batting means that consistency isn't always there. But to be very honest, nobody has been consistent in the long run, and this is purely with the advantage of hindsight. Uh, but you have to take decisions as a management as form comes and goes. So I understand that as well. But if you look at it, Sanju Samson has been as good as Abhishek or Ishan Kishan, and Ishan Kishan has obviously got a very smaller time period. He made it to the side, I believe, just this
3 weeks
year.
back.
Yeah, so
Not 3 weeks.
Was
Yeah, 2 months back.
Sanju was in the plans for at least 95% of the previous cycle. So it's only fair that he got to play in the World Cup, and he has done well because it is important. It was important for him to do well considering Abhishek's absolutely horrible run.
Yeah.
And the way these guys bat and the intent and the way they score runs, you have to factor in that they might go on a run like Abhishek has. So considering that, the kind of depth India have, they got to utilize it really well. And for the first time, I felt India got their uh, entry points absolutely bang on. They got Shivam Dubey at 4 to counter Adil Rashid and Will Jacks because he's a spin hitter, everyone knows that. And they got in Sky at 5 only in the 15th over, if I'm not wrong. And then Hardik walked in, then you had Tilak. So it all worked really well for them, and all of them played their part. I think Ishan Kishan was really good. Shivam Dubey also scored a high intent 40. Hardik as well. Tilak came in and hit 3 sixes, scored 21 of 7. Surya as well. No one kind of bogged down the scoring, which is very important in games like these where every single run matters.
Yeah, 100%. I had a very interesting comparison to make. This campaign of Sanju Samson, and by this campaign I mean this entire cycle, it's very similar to Shane Watson from the 2019 IPL season, where in one way it's a bit different, where Shane Watson was constantly given the opportunity to open, even though he was flopping and he was getting out like for fun. But he came good in the most important 2 games, which was the eliminator, or I think qualifier 2 and the final, where he was the only man who performed and took CSK almost to the title. And it's very similar with Sanju, where although he was dropped, he was never removed from the squad. He was always around. He was also batting at number 5, I think. And now they've persisted with him, and now he's finally shown what he's capable of in the most important moments. And I think it's going to be something similar with Abhishek Sharma as well. Luckily, they haven't dropped him. They are staying with him, and he might just come good in the final. And when he comes good, you don't need anybody else.
Yeah, I think that is what they're banking on, that at some point he will come good, and when he eventually does, that is one game they win without much effort from the others. So
Yeah.
if that is the final, I think everyone will forget the kind of campaign he has had if he goes on to score one of his iconic 40 ball hundreds or something in the final. So everyone
Yeah.
is waiting for that, and that is why I feel that the management also deserves a bit of applause, because when you criticize them so much, you also have to applaud them where they deserve it, because I don't think anyone else would have backed high volatile players like Sanju Samson or Abhishek Sharma for this long. I know they did lose faith in Sanju Samson and got Shubman Gill in August, but then to also realize that they were going in the wrong direction and rectifying it, that too is good, because they did get rid of Shubman Gill quite in time, and
Yeah. Just in
I
time.
feel that anyone else would have rather continued with him. Now that they have got him into the side, let us continue with him and maybe things would have been different. You wouldn't have seen Ishan Kishan or Sanju Samson here. And they also got in Jitesh Sharma, if I'm not wrong, in the mix. And then to also realize that he's not the right man and try out Ishan Kishan. So management has been quite good in these decisions. They know when to back a certain player and when to let go. So that
Yeah,
is something I liked. And
I was
moving
very
on,
surprised. Yeah, sorry. The fact that Shubman Gill being the vice captain and he was removed not only from the squad, sorry, not only from the team but from the squad was a very big thing, and it's a big W for India and Gigi. So I hope their hard work comes to fruition in the last game. But I actually wanted to ask you about England's performance because they ultimately lost only by 7 runs. And when you're chasing 250 plus, as I said, losing by such a small margin means that you've done well. What was your uh, what's your opinion about the way they approached the innings in the first few overs? Did they make the same mistake that South Africa did?
uh, not really. I just feel that if someone looks at the scoreboard only, they would think that England were well in the game, and they were, but I would say India were ahead for the most parts, and you knew that England were chasing the game for the large part. At one stage, though, I would say they were genuinely in the game
Yeah,
when they needed 69 runs of 5 overs. In today's day and age, that is pretty much chaseable.
yeah,
But then one look at whose overs were left, and you had 2 of Bumrah, and that kind of sealed the deal. But I felt that they also kind of replicated what India did or are doing with Abhishek, with Joss Butler. They have been carrying him throughout this tournament, even though he's had an absolutely horrible campaign. And they also would have felt that he will come good at some point, but unfortunately for them, he didn't. And even today, it was just very painful to watch him bat. And I would actually go on to say, in such a chase, those were the balls that actually came back to haunt them. He scored, I think, 25-17. And when you're having the advantage of power play and no Bumrah, because Bumrah doesn't bowl much in the power play, you have to absolutely capitalize. And they didn't, because 17 balls, 25 is basically half the power play. You're going at 8 and over when you need 12 and a half and over, and power play is supposed to be your highest scoring period, so you're going extra slow in the higher scoring period, so where you are supposed to kind of take lead in the game so that you can have the flexibility to consolidate later on. You actually put your team behind in that very phase. So it did end up hitting them hard, the decision to stick with Butler. But again, you can't really blame them for that, because he's someone who, if he comes good, he can absolutely win you the entire game on his own. And then after that, I don't think many were expecting Jacob Bethel to bat the way he did. He was due a big score in this tournament, but to play that knock in a World Cup semi-final, I would actually rate it a bit higher than Finn Allen's 100 because of the class and the situation. Finn Allen, I think halfway into his innings, the result was pretty imminent, but Bethel was under pressure throughout. And I would like to say that uh, the moment where he got to his 100 and he decided to celebrate by removing the helmet and kind of, I think it ruined the momentum a bit, and Sam Curran kind of prompted him to go for the celebration. I have an absolutely different problem with Sam Curran as well, which I'll get to, but he kind of celebrated his 100 and absolutely killed the momentum, because England were having a lot of momentum heading into those final 10 balls, and maybe they needed 33 of 11 with Bumrah done. And at that time, he decided to take a break in play and celebrate and all of that. And after that, he just couldn't carry on in the same way. So that was actually a underrated big moment in the game for me. And talking about Sam Curran, so let me ask you this: you've got, hello, uh,
Yeah, I'm there.
uh, you've got 45 runs to chase in 18 balls, and we have got 1 over of Bumrah. So what do you think is your best tactic? Do you rather play him out and get the required rate up to 20, and then hope that you would hit the next 2 overs big, or you decide to take a risk, and if it comes off you get 10 or 12 runs, so the game is still chaseable after that, and if you lose a wicket you've got someone who can hit the ball better than you coming after you, which is Archer and Overton, of course. So what would you do?
That's a very difficult question. If I was Sam Curran, obviously I would try to clear the boundary. But I think the issue is because the strike is not exchanged anymore if the batter is caught. It kind of wastes 2 balls because I'm sure a new batter can't hit Bumrah right from the start. Which
Yeah,
is
but
why I
isn't it
think,
better than blocking it back to Bumrah?
yeah, back
That's
to
what he
Bumrah
did.
is not good. I think he was trying to rotate the strike and bring Bethel back on strike because at that stage you want a set batter to play as many balls as possible. But I would. It's very difficult because if you try and commit and you get out, then again you're wasting a ball. So my approach would actually be just to bring Bethel back on strike and then back myself to it the next few bowlers.
So I think their strategy was to see out Bumrah, which was,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, it is an option, but I wouldn't take it, to be honest, because when you decide to do that and the required rate is 15, you're kind of saying that, okay, I'm happy with 5 or 6 runs here, and I'll hit 20 of the next two each, and then if I don't get 20 of the next, then I have to hit 30 in the last. So you're literally 2 or 3 good balls away from losing the game there.
Yeah,
I would
I
rather give
actually,
myself the chance to try and
yeah,
take on Bumrah, and if it doesn't come off, you miss 1 ball, but it's better than blocking 5 balls.
yeah, that makes sense. But what I said is, I would back Bethel to take down Bumrah because he is the set batter. He's done so well. So if I'm Sam Curran, instead of me trying to slog Bumrah for a six, get out, bring Archer, and then Archer trying to do the same thing. You're leaving Bethel on the non-strikers end stranded, and let's say you waste 2 or 3 balls, the match is over. So the best strategy for a Sam Curran is to just take a single, bring Bethel on strike, and let Bethel try and hit Bumrah for a six, because the likelihood of him doing that is a lot higher than Sam Curran.
Uh,
But yeah, the issue that England did it is both the batters were just taking singles and rotating strike, which I think hurt them because I think they got only 6 or 7 runs of the
6.
18th over, which is not enough when the
Yeah.
required rate is so much.
I would actually kind of excuse Bethel to try and remain off strike in the Bumrah over, because he would back himself to hit those sixes in the next over, because he's been in absolutely terrific form. He's seeing the ball like a watermelon at that point. So I think I would have kind of strategized it as Sam Curran going for the kill, because he has nothing to lose against Bumrah, and even if he gets out, it doesn't really matter, because you can you don't have to kind of blindly go after Bumrah for the entire over, but you can at least go for it and see if you get out, then maybe Archer can take a single or do something else. But the problem I have with their strategy is that they didn't even try, and they were a bit ultra defensive against Bumrah. Who knows if they had gotten 5 or 6 more runs there, maybe one swing edge for 4 something, uh, things could have been different. You never know. And this is a World Cup semi-final, so there's no point maybe just thinking now that they could have done things differently. They had to give it their all. So that is what I felt. And maybe they had a different strategy in mind, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's at the end of the day, it's Jasprit Bumrah that you're facing. So even if you have a plan, Bumrah might have a different plan, and then you're stuck in a melee. But I think, in my opinion, England lost the match the moment Will Jacks got out. Because I was following the match and I was watching it live, and the moment Will Jacks got out, I was almost going to turn off the TV because I think both they needed two good set batters who were in form, and the moment it was only Bethel, it was very tough because ultimately there was going to be one over where either Bethel would be off strike for majority of it and they end up scoring less, or like Bumrah where they just keep rotating strike because Bethel can't afford to get out. So that was the issue.
Yeah. So in the end, I think when you're chasing such a big score and the required rate is constantly around 15 of 16, one good over absolutely damages your chances, because
Yeah.
then you have to play a catch up in the upcoming couple of overs just to get it back to a required rate where you have to again go aggressively. So maybe 3 overs of 6 or below in that entire run chase means that you have kind of secured a win directly, because it's
Yeah.
too much of a task to if they go for, let's say, 20 runs of 4 good overs, so that means you're left with around 230 runs to chase in the next 100 balls, which is next to
Almost
impossible.
impossible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now let me pose a question for you because you just mentioned this. In this match, like you mentioned, all it took was one good bowling over that took the required rate away, and then the batting team was playing catch up. So would you prefer this, or would you prefer matches where the required 100 is very low and one good batting over pushes it very low, and then the bowlers have to catch up and bowl tight, set up fields, and then take the required rate back up? So which side would you prefer the required rate going?
I would, just because of the quality of cricket that is seen, I would like to see the latter, which is a kind of a game where the bowler has the better conditions, and when a batter gets a big over in, it kind of is an anomaly and kind of changes the game in the batter's favor because
Yeah.
of that over. And otherwise it's the bowlers who are dominating. I like those kind of games a bit more because it's more in the balance rather
Exactly.
than here where you're a bowling machine and only someone like a Jasprit Bumrah's class can deliver a spell even when the economy over there is above 8, but you have to consider it as a great spell. It was a great spell, but still the fact that 1 for 33 is considered to be a average spell in an average T20 game. So times have changed, and 1 for 33 I think is one of Bumrah's better spells in T20 World Cups. So
Yeah.
I would definitely prefer games where there's a equal uh, battle between the bat and ball, similar to the pitches we have seen throughout this tournament. I think up until a week back, you hardly had any pitches like this, and then you had I think the Pakistan Sri Lanka game. You had a 200 plays 200, which is also fine, and then India playing Zimbabwe, India playing West Indies, you started seeing a few more high-scoring pitches in the later stages.
Yeah, yeah.
But the frequency of those, I'm still impressed, because out of 55 games, if 5 are such pitches and 50 are the good ones, I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, so I think as we round up this podcast, I think one important factor for India going into the final is the form of Varun Chakravarti. Because yesterday, I think was smashed for 3 sixes of his first 3 balls and then never really looked comfortable. I think he ended up scoring or conceding 60 runs or 50 runs in
Yeah,
his
64.
3 overs. So, oh, he did bowl 4. So, what do you think is the issue with him? Is this pitch specific, or do you think he's lost his rhythm a bit? And is it a situation that's bad enough to drop him maybe for Kuldeep, especially against New Zealand, who have a lot of
Yeah.
righties?
I think going for runs and looking a bit clueless for 4 games in a row is a bit concerning for Varun, especially after the way he performed in the group stages, albeit against a few weaker oppositions, but still he had his rhythm and everything going, and then suddenly has dropped off massively. And today was kind of a bit too much, I would say, for the average fan to take, because they've never seen Varun Chakravarti being dealt with in that fashion.
Yeah,
I mean, he came into bowl, and I was quite hopeful of the English players kind of not picking him, and then Bethel went after him on the very first 3 balls for 3 sixes, and all 3 very good shots. I think the problem that I have noticed in him is, if he is taken down earlier in his spell, he kind of loses a bit of rhythm, and completely it messes up with him. And we used to see that with Kuldeep Yadav, if you remember earlier, when someone took down Kuldeep Yadav, he would just completely lose his head and kind of go into that defensive mindset straight away, and which he has improved a lot. But Varun Chakravarti still isn't that matured yet. That's what I feel, where he can come back to his basics even after going for runs. So that is
yeah,
what I think he needs to do, because if you see, whenever he goes for runs, naturally his speed increases and the trajectory becomes flatter and quicker, because he tries to go into that defensive mode, and that won't always work. So that is why I feel teams have kind of understood that you have to take him down early in his spell, and Bethel today was a prime example of that. He targeted him on the very first 3 balls, and that kind of set him off for the rest of the spell. But I also feel that the last 3 games, the pitches haven't suited him that much. Though it's not an excuse, but I feel that he's still not droppable, and they should stick with him for the final. And the other thing is that the stadium in Ahmedabad, it doesn't suit Kuldeep Yadav, because he's a very slow and someone who relies on pace off the pitch. So if you're a slow bowler who's bowling mostly fuller lengths, that's what Kuldeep does. Ahmedabad is not the ideal ground for you to bowl, because it's a pitch where you kind of need a bit of pace of your bowling, and slow bowlers are generally easier to hit. So I would stick with Varun Chakravarti, but he needs to understand that he has to stick to his basics and kind of not be affected by him getting hit for runs.
yeah. I think I'm not really sure of the conditions, so I will probably go with what you've said. But just like Abhishek Sharma, I think we know what Chakravarti can do. He can single-handedly destroy batting lineups, and I think with players like Finn Allen and Tim Seifert, who are risk takers, I think Chakravarti might have a better chance where he can maybe outfox them. And it's just one more game, so you might as well just play him and if he doesn't do well, then you can see what to do.
Yeah, and also from his career standpoint, it would be absolutely heart shattering for him if he's dropped from the World Cup final, because that would send out a message that we have seen you bowl and you're not capable enough to bowl in a World Cup final. So
Yeah,
that won't send out a good message either. So I
and
would
I
stick with this.
assume, yeah, and I would assume this is his last World Cup because I think he is. He's towards the latter part of his career, although he's just started, but he's already 34. Uh, but yeah, by the way, there was a news about the next T20 World Cup. It's the founding committee has been finalized, and it's the same team that organized the 2015 World Cup. So a bit of excitement for that. But
Yeah,
nevertheless, we have the final first.
it's the Olympics year as well, so a lot to look forward to. I think 2028. I know we're digressing a bit, but 2028 will be the year till which a lot of cricketers will try to push from the current generation, because nobody wants to miss out on Olympics, the very first Olympics, and
Yeah.
being able to win that would be quite an achievement. So I honestly see a lot of players who are obviously able to will carry on not till the 2027 World Cup, but push on till 2028. Of course, Rohit and Virat have missed that train, because there's no way they're coming back and unretiring from the T20 format. But someone like I would
Surya.
also add, yeah, Surya, maybe Bumrah will be around, I hope. But even Steve Smith has publicly said that a few times, that he wants to win the Olympics. So,
Hopefully gets to compete in it
yeah.
because New Zealand have made the final, so their the rating must have increased by quite a margin for them.
Yeah, so we will be back for the final, or are we doing only
Are
a
we going to
review?
preview? I think we can preview the final as well because in this podcast, although it's 47 minutes, we haven't really spoken much about the final. So it would
Yeah,
be nice to kind of set a few stones.
expectations.
Yeah.
I honestly see Allen and Seifert being a big trouble for India, and not because I saw them scoring in the semi and so I'm pushing it, but if you look at it, power play is the one area where New Zealand have done the best because of Allen and Seifert, and power play bowling is where India have struggled the most, because
Yeah.
they just haven't gotten wickets up top. So I feel that is the best matchup for New Zealand. That is to go hard up top, because eventually you will have to slow down if the pitch isn't like the one we saw here. Uh, there's no way you can catch up in the middle overs. So you would rather go hard early on, and even if that means you're at a risk of losing one of Allen or Safford early on, I would still take the punt, because if it comes off, you are ahead in the game, especially if you're chasing. There's a chance to kind of kill the game like they did in the semi. So that is where India need to do well, and more than Arshdeep, I feel Hardik has a big role there.
Yeah. So now that you have started previewing it, we might as well just do it in this. I actually have a very different opinion. I think for Indian fans, it's going to be very good that we have New Zealand instead of South Africa. But as a cricket fan, I think it's going to be a very boring and a one-sided final. India is going to dominate from ball 1 to ball 120, 240 actually, if it goes still there. But I think New Zealand, they are not even comparable to this Indian T20 side. Yes, their openers are in form, but I think India has a decent amount of variety in their bowling attack that they can handle the openers very easily. And I think as a T20 or as a cricket fan, I would have enjoyed an India South Africa, or maybe an England South Africa, or maybe also an England New Zealand final. because those teams are much closer. But now I see this as any other bilateral T20 match that India has played, where you might see India batting first again, scoring 230, 240 runs, and then New Zealand will have absolutely no chance. Or if New Zealand bats first, they'll be bundled out for like 160, 170 runs, and then it could be a bit close, but I think India would still chase it quite comfortably.
I think that is a bit rich coming from you, especially considering the way we went down at this venue a couple of weeks back. Though that was South Africa, but I think this Indian team isn't that secure a team to say that they'll win this game even before it starts. I know they are the better team on paper, and if these two teams play each other 10 times, India would come out victorious at least 8 times. But you never know when those two come, and just because it's New Zealand, I know we have defeated them in the recent past in the 2023 group stage and semis, in 2025 Champions Trophy group stage and the final. So the last 4 games at least in ICC events we have defeated them, but still they have left generational scars on Indians over the years. So I wouldn't be surprised if a few are expecting a close contest. I know New Zealand's bowling is, at least on paper, it shouldn't be performing the way it has. There's no way when your fifth bowler is Nisham and Rachin Ravindra, there's no way you're doing well. And I think that is where New Zealand will be exposed, because they will be tempted to get in an extra bowler if Allen and Seifert are in the form that they are, and they don't need the depth that they currently have, because they do need the depth in bowling against India.
Yeah.
And I feel that either of Jacob Duffy or Kyle Jamieson could get an eye in. I wouldn't go for an extra spinner, because that could backfire as well, considering how poorly East Sodi fares against India. I would rather go with Jacob Duffy or, of course, Kyle Jamieson, who's been India's nemesis. And he has a bit of experience playing at this venue as well in the IPL. I think he played the IPL final over here last year.
Yeah, correct.
Though that's not enough, but he still has played. So they have a few decisions to make, but if they go in with a bowling lineup having Nisham as their fifth bowler, they're definitely in for a nasty surprise in the final, because there's no place to hide if things go wrong, and things will go wrong with that bowling attack.
Yeah. From what you said, I remember Kyle Jamieson was very good at bowling those slower middle of the pitch balls, and he did that versus India in the ODI series that happened recently. So I think based on his experience, they might go for him. Plus he can bat as well, so that extends the batting order a bit. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough. But nevertheless, it's a final. Anything can happen. But I'll be very disappointed if India lose this. It will be unbelievable for me.
I think after 19 November, nothing is impossible. And definitely, whenever India have been in great form, they have found ways to humble themselves. So I won't be too optimistic. Definitely India have to win this. There's no doubt, on paper at least, but I'm keeping all options open.
Yeah, and for our viewers, we have a special surprise for you. But this is again down to you. If we get at least 11 comments asking us to live stream the final, we will do it. I'm banking on you guys to not comment. 11 of you to not comment. But if that happens, then we will be there for the final. which will be quite exciting.
Yeah, so if you want us to wake up early on a Sunday morning and live stream, please comment. Hopefully, you make it till this part of the episode so that you know that you have to comment.
Yeah, so I think we've previewed the final. Maybe you can officially give your predictions for what may happen.
Yeah, so I would like to assume here that India will do well, and my very bold prediction is that Hardik Pandya will be the difference maker. If India are batting first, they will need at least 200. I won't say they'll need 250 like the game today, but they will still need to be at least 20 runs above par, factoring in for that opening onslaught of New Zealand.
Yeah,
Because if you are with a par score and they come and do their thing, you would be kind of knocked out of the game. But if you have that leeway of 20 or 30 runs, you can still kind of do something to remain in the game and hope that Bumrah comes off, Varun comes off, and you are still there. So I would hope for that. And I would say Hardik Pandya with the ball, he did a great job versus England. So I hope and I believe that they will need him to do well in the power play in the final as well.
yeah, that's a nice prediction because it's also his home ground and he's got tons of experience bowling there for Gujarat. I'm also predicting that India will win this match. Either ways, it should be a one-sided contest because I think if it's a close contest, there's no way New Zealand is winning because this Indian team under pressure does really well. I think New Zealand can win only if they thrash India like South Africa, but I don't see that happening. So I'll go with India. And for me, the impact player in that final will be Mitch Santner. Sorry, it will be someone who will play Mitch Santner. It's going to be Ishan Kishan. I think coming in at number three, he will play a fantastic innings and he'll take advantage of uh, the left-handedness of Mitchell Santner and the other bowlers as well. So he's my player to watch out for.
Yeah, and before we end, and before I forget, I do feel the need to mention two very, very underrated heroes of India, and we haven't touched up, touched upon them, and will feel bad if we end the podcast without doing that. So Akshar Patel and Shivam Dubey, absolutely ridiculous how often they come up with performances when the team needs them,
Yeah,
and they don't really get much credit because they kind of go under the radar most of the times. Even today, Shivam Dubey, I don't know how many times he's done that in the recent past, dating all the way back to 2024 in the World Cup final. He played a very important cameo. I think, if I remember correctly, in that semi final against England, he was struggling a bit, and there were a few shouts of what is he doing in the 11, and the casuals kind of noticing him for the first time and asking him to be kicked out. And then he came up in the final and played that crucial knock. I believe it was about 25 of 12 or 13 balls, which was very important as we saw
yeah,
later on. And also in the Asia Cup final recently against Pakistan, he came in and smashed a couple of sixes and a four and was very good. And with the ball as well, in the final, he opened the bowling for India, which is remarkable. And even in this World Cup, consistently doing well, and got a few big knocks in the Super 8s and the group stages. But those two boundaries against West Indies were also very important, kind of
yeah,
killed the game right there. And even today, again, to come in at 4 and score 40 of 20 didn't break the momentum of the side and just went with the flow. Unbelievable. And then Akshar Patel, I know we are extending this a bit, but I have to mention even him in 2024. That is when he got his first chance. I know he should have been in the World Cup 2023 squad as well, but let's not go there. In 2024, he got that very important 3-4 in the semi-final, was man of the match as well in that game, player of the match. And in the final, that invaluable knock of 47, he was run out, but he was unbelievable and keeps taking catches throughout in that tournament. And of course, fell out of favor in between, I would say, but made his way to this tournament and he has been brilliant. Again, was dropped for Washington Sundar in between in this very tournament, which is unbelievable to think. But now that he's here, his catches were the game-changing moment for me. The two of them, because one of them was Harry. It was Harry
it was
Brook,
Brook.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was kind of the most important wicket. And then even Will Jacks, when things weren't going India's way, to get that relay catch with Shivam Dubey, I think was kind of very poetic. That those two, at that point, I would say, seal the game for India. So I had to mention all of this, and I think I forgot to do that earlier. So it might sound weird that we previewed the final and then went back to this, but I had to put it out there.
Yeah, I agree. Shivam Dubey, he's been massively underrated, but whenever India needed him, he's always performed. The only funny thing is, I think he's got a run out for the third or fourth time in this World Cup, which is quite funny because Rinku Singh got him out twice, and I think today was his third time. And I hope they don't give him the ball because versus Zimbabwe and now today versus England as well, he's not reliable with the ball. So I just hope they stick to him as a pure batter. But apart from that, he's been India's savior along with Akshar Patel.
Yeah, Akshar, Shivam, and Hardik, that trio in the middle has been unbelievable in multiple in multiple facets of the game, not just one. So, unbelievable dynamic trio, and I hope they do it one more time in the final.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just one more match left, and my favorite ICC campaign of all time. It's from the 2023 World Cup. It said it takes one day, and that's exactly true. It takes one more day for India. All this domination, it rests on performing on one day, which is the funny part of cricket. So I think we have previewed the final, so we shouldn't need a podcast for that. So we'll hopefully see you during the match, and after the match we'll recap the final, and then we'll also go over the World Cup and discuss in brief about all the 20 teams. And then obviously we have the domestic cricket season coming up, which will be very exciting as well.
Indian T20 League. Yeah, so until that, there's still a lot more coming up. You've got a brand new F1 season coming up. We will be talking about that in a TUF one.
Yeah, as of right now, the first practice session has ended, and it's a Ferrari 1-2, so things are looking good.
Yeah, and Sunday will be a battle between Lawson's country and Arvid's country. I'm sorry.
Arvid's mother's country.
Yeah, so we'll have a TUF1 right before coming up, which is about the predictions made by you of the season predictions. And of course, I will also be coming up with a mini talking about my very own Wankhede conspiracy theory. So until next time, this is us signing off.
Samplak Dada.